always just attacking when defending.
I think it's like
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Come on.
People deluded, I'm back again. Now, as you can see with the scoreline in front of me, Arsenal 0, Newcastle United 0, and it's a game that it's a couple of emotions, really. You know, again, I'd say first thing would be frustration, because as Arsenal Football Club, we've been on a great season. We've been winning games. We ain't done the drawing thing too much in it, so it's a bit frustrated not to win at home, not to win when you're the more dominant side, and just to win the games in it. So it is a bit frustrating. I'm a bit frustrated with the ref. Clearly trigger happy for both teams with the yellow cards. One benefit would be obviously no one is suspended for the Spurs game, but I think he was a bit trigger happy. How we haven't got a penalty, I don't know. You know, the one at the last moment of the game, definitely one with Dan Burn on Dan Burn on Gabriel. But it is what it is, really and truly. There's probably been a number of times this season we've been given favourable decisions or got away with it. So it is frustrating not to convert 1 point into 3. But as they say, if you can't win, don't lose. Newcastle have one of the best defensive records in the league prior to this game. And within this game, they showed why. You know, again, as much as I can waffle about the ref, these are 1 or 2 minute flashpoints. And again, there's been times that we've gotten decisions or we've gotten away with decisions, and also times that we haven't. So these things happen in the Prem. But what I would say is, if these are 1 or 2 minute moments, what did we do in the other 80? And on the benefit, on the you know, what did we do in terms of the variables to control? And on the balance of things, we didn't do enough to win today. You know, we knew going against Newcastle, they're a very good team technically. They're a very good team in an attacking sense. They're very rigid defensively. And I think with the way they pressed us in the first half, second half was more just us, but the way they pressed us in the first half, they were difficult to break down. They were physical where they needed to be to kind of try and rattle us. They were pressing. They were cutting the passing lanes out. You know, we didn't do enough to break them down. You know, what I would say in terms of positives, ironically, you know, against West Ham and Brighton, we should have got a clean sheet for Ramsdale. We've got a clean sheet. If you can't win, don't lose. While I would have loved to have won, especially because we've got Newcastle, Spurs, United, etc. If you can't win, don't lose. We're playing one of the best informed teams in the league. Between Arsenal, Newcastle, and City, Man City, we're the best performing teams in the league. You can hail up Fulham and stuff for over exceeding expectations. So if you offered me a point prior to this game, I would have taken it, really. So I can't really complain. The most things I would say is I just don't think we did enough in the final third. I think the reluctance to bring on an attacking sort of player from Mikel Arteta, not that I felt there was really the angle to do it. I wouldn't have gone for Marquinhos. Xhaka on a yellow card would have been just it, but he was doing all right. I couldn't see bringing on Fabio Vieira, Marquinhos. I think it shows why we need to get Mudryk signed and why we need more quality in depth, because although I think Martinelli was quite quiet today, Saka had his moments. I think Eddie did all right today without too many chances, as one in the second half. We need a squad, and as you know, suspensions are becoming a thing. The games are coming thick and fast. You know, it's already a big physical test, and we can't, as much as these young players or young-ish players have done well, we can't expect them to do it every week. So we do need a stronger squad. And I think, not to criticize the players that are on the bench, but I think the reluctance to bring on any attacking player when we kind of demanded a change of things from Mikel Arteta shows you kind of where he's at. We didn't do enough in the final third. Second half, we were the more dominant team without a doubt. And that's where my frustration comes, that we just weren't able to convert. Like, even in the first half, for a large period, Gabriel's half-decent header was the best opportunity. So as good as I think Xhaka and Zinchenko were in terms of their partnership, you know, Saka in moments, you know, we didn't really have the best of games that we could have, or really did enough specifically in the final third to nick 3 points today. You know, when you look at the shots ratio by the end of the game, our opponents, Newcastle, had 8 shots, 1 on target, and just 33% of the ball, and just 253 passes. We had 17 shots, 4 on target, 67% of the ball, and 536 passes. So we didn't convert any of this into, pardon me, goals. But if you offered me a point before, I would have taken it. We've still only got a single loss for the season against Man United. We picked up a point against a fantastic side where obviously the form we're in, you want to win. But if you offered me a point, I wouldn't have been surprised. I think the fact that, you know, The only bad things I would say is we've got limited options on the bench. That's why we need Mudryk and Smith Rowe and Reece Nelson probably to get fit. So there's a bit of options there. We look better in seeing out games with Tomiyasu, Tini and El Nene than chasing games or bringing someone with a bit of different stuff. I think the second half was all Arsenal, and that's where my frustration that we just couldn't find it. But especially with the form that we've been scoring whole heap of goals this season, but it can't always be your day. As I always say, and as a famous saying says, if you can't win, don't lose. So I think we're with that. I think we had at least 2 penalty shouts. Definitely the Gabriel one. The one at the end, I think, is a bit... But yeah, I don't think we put Nick Pope under any real sustained pressure in his goal. I don't think we really showed the quality that we have and have shown with the amount of goals we've had this season in the final third, really. I did think, you know, my feelings at half-time when Newcastle were making this a physical contest and they were actually losing their head. Like, you could see Trippier telling people to calm down, really. I did think Newcastle were holding their shape well, limiting the passing lanes, as I said. I did think on occasion we was living dangerously with a couple of passes from Zinchenko and Ramsdale. Nothing really on note. I did think we could have done better to isolate our wide men, Martinelli and Saka, because on occasion, when we did counter-attack or when they were 1v1, they did well. But more often than not, as you'd expect Eddie Howe's side and Newcastle side of this season, they doubled up well against our men. They were difficult to break down. I think Eddie Nketiah had a good game as well, so it's another vote of confidence from him, really. But yeah, man, we just didn't do enough, really. You know, in the opening 10 minutes, we had 5 shots, 1 on target. So that was probably a theme. And even in the first 5 minutes, you could see that, you know, Newcastle were going to be congested in the middle of the park. They were compact. They were tight. They were almost playing for a draw, which I'm not criticizing them for. Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli all had early half chances. Xhaka looked good on the transition. And I did think they were squeezing us very tight. And we showed bravery in that regard. You can't win them all. You know, what's that? Our second draw of the season in a day and age where football's about fine margins. I would say this was frustrating because I think we could have played a lot better in creating chances in the final third. You remember the Southampton game, we dropped points from winning positions, but you know, to sit here at this point this season and the only game, there are games we've won and could have done a lot better, but we lost against Man United. We dropped points from a winning position against Southampton. We couldn't find the winner or anything against Newcastle. To only have 3 games where you're really disappointed with, it's a madness. Obviously, I'm an Arsenal man. I'm always going to get at the ref. I did enjoy Mikel Arteta from start to finish on the sideline, just moving mad. And it's like he wanted to fight Eddie Howe, really and truly. But yeah, man, I think if you offered both coaches or both teams a draw, regardless of how good they've both been and the fact that both teams should fancy each other, I think both fans, when they move away from that, would have taken a draw. Did want to see a couple more attacking substitutions from Arteta, but then again, as I said, I agree, but who the hell is off the bench to really bring? I think we should have had a pen. Ultimately, I just think we should have done more in 90 minutes to break them down, and you can see fatigue starting to play a part. The fact that the games are coming thick and fast, there's a lot of fatigue and we're playing the same players. I think we're going to need to see some rotation sooner rather than not. Like, it's the second game where last 20, half an hour, however long Benjamin White was on, he looked knackered. He looked cream crackered. Big up Tomiyasu for saving us at the end, though, because I thought Newcastle were going to nick it, if I'm honest with you. There was a dodgy pass from Ramsdale that almost sold Xhaka short. But ultimately, I'm happy that we got a clean sheet. I'm happy that we walk away with something. I'm happy that, again, against an informed team, we've got a draw. If you can't win, don't lose. I'm happy that we still kind of remain undefeated since the United game. And I'm happy that Arteta and the players will be frustrated about this. They would have felt that they could have won this. They would have felt that it was there for the taking. For me, I think we should add some pens. I think we needed to do enough in the final third to be more efficient, move it quicker and be more effective. I think we should have won the game in the second half because it's like Newcastle, but you know, we're on the ropes really and truly, and they've got 2 draws in week, you know, back to back really. I think Newcastle were on the back foot the whole of the second half. First half was a bit even, so I think we could have done a bit more in that regards. This is, you know, it is what it is really and truly. There isn't really much more to say really. It's frustrating because obviously the lead at the top of the table kind of gets cut. And if you're United who've picked up points, you know, if you're Spurs who got Palace later and all these other sides, you know, there isn't too much mathematical points separating first from wherever. Like looking at the league table at this moment in time, people, just if I share it with you, away from the sentiment. Now, I'm sure if you was to speak about Arsenal, City, Newcastle, Manchester United, Spurs, or Liverpool, or Fulham, or Brighton, or Chelsea, or Brentford, there's many different isolated points in relation to their clubs. but mathematically there really isn't too much choice. I know there's 14 points clear from 5th to 1st, but Newcastle and City could easily catch. United have indirectly did a favor in that Arsenal have dropped points, and also they're level with Newcastle, so they're creeping up the table, really and truly. They're still only both a point a bit behind City, who have a game in hand, 2 games in hand on some people. Spurs are quite fortunate because you always want your top 6 sides to drop points. And again, Newcastle are the immediate threat. So for them and United, it kind of brings them closer. Obviously, you could extend that to Liverpool, who lost against Brentford. So we could have lost. We could have won. We could have done a lot more. We're just going to have to go again, and we're just going to have to catch them on the rebound at their place, really. We didn't do enough to break down statistically the league best defense, but if you can't win, don't lose. While I wouldn't have taken it, I would have taken a draw prior to the game. Obviously, as an Arsenal fan, this is our first 0-0. This is the first game we failed to score in. This must be the first game in a hot minute that Arsenal Football Club has failed to score in. But you can't score in them all. You can't win in them all. You can't be perfect in them all. I also think Zinchenko, Partey, Xhaka all had good games. I think Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, they were quite sleepy. I think Eddie had a decent performance as well in terms of his general play. I think the ref was very trigger happy for both teams to dish out yellow cards, but it is what it is, people. We just need to get back on it. And I think our next game is against Oxford. We've got Oxford. You'd probably expect some rotation there. Then we've obviously got to play Spurs, Man United, and go to a couple of away games. But it is what it is, people. The lead at the top allegedly has been cut. We just have to keep moving. We just have to keep moving, people. So on that note, there's nothing more I can add, people. Stay blessed, stay safe. Let me know your opinions by commenting and subscribing and that. Yeah, I'm out, man. You lot stay blessed. Happy New Year. Arsenal 0, Newcastle 0.
Because you always use that active red flag, defending.
I think it's like